Hello and welcome back to the Solo RolePlayers Podcast. I'm your host PJ, and today on the show I'm really thrilled to bring you the host and GM of by far my most listened to RPG podcast of all time. I haven't told you that yet, but that is the truth. Andreas Lundström, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I feel even more honored now.
Yeah. We are going to talk about Sweden roles. We're going to talk about Free League, music, writing adventures. But before we do all that, everyone has a bit of a story about how they got into this weird and wonderful hobby of tabletop RPGs. Andreas Lundström, what is your story? How did you get here?
Oh, how much time do we have?
All day.
Well, I'm a few years too young to have been caught up in the RPG hype of the 80s. I had heard about RPGs like in the late 80s when I was, maybe 10, 12. But the only group that were playing RPGs around where I lived back then, they were playing AD&D 2nd edition. And they were already like mid-campaign, so I always I asked them, oh, this sounds cool, can I join? And they were like, no, you can't join. You won't understand what it's about. You can't jump in.
Yeah.
So my RPG debut was delayed a bit. I got really into... I actually got two supplements. I got the Barbarian's Handbook for AD&D 2nd edition, because I was flipping through some pages in a friend's book, and I was like, this is so awesome, I need a book. And I just bought that one really randomly, and just I can still basically point out most of the art in that handbook, I think. Nice. Even though I haven't flipped through it for many years. But I never used it, because I never played AD&D 2nd edition. And I also bought the boxed set for Mutant 2, which was a supplement to the Mutant RPG by Target Games, the big RPG company in Sweden in the 80s and 90s. They sold their games under the name of Äventyrsspel, adventure games, basically. Mm-hmm. But there was a supplement, so there were no, even though it was a boxed set, it was still, just, it wasn't the 2nd edition. It was just, a supplement. So the basic rules for the game were in another book. Mm-hmm. So I just, and I'd never played. So I bought it. I looked in it. There was a lot of tables for cool guns and a lot of cool illustrations once again. But I did not understand any of it. Same with this AD&D 2nd edition Barbarian's Handbook. Like both those books, I didn't grasp the difference between, a basic book, a basic rule book, and a supplement. So I just bought those two. I flipped through them. They looked awesome, but I understand nothing. So I got into Tolkien quite heavily in the early 90s. And in 94, I started what we in Sweden call gymnasiet, which is basically equivalent to the American high school. You start it when you're 16-ish. And I got a new friend, and he had an RPG group. They were playing Drakar och Demoner, which is a Swedish name for the RPG Dragonbane by Free League Publishing now. They took over the license a few years ago. And they were playing all kinds of RPGs. They were playing all the RPGs from Target Games, the old big company. They had a translation for West End Games Star Wars. They had a translation for... MERP, Middle-earth role-playing game. Mm-hmm. So we did a lot of that. So he asked me, would you like to join? And I was like, oh, can I? Please, thank you. I've been wanting to get into this forever. And I remember my first session, the GM was really kind to me, but I did not grasp how free it was. Yeah. So I got bitten by a vampire, and I got killed in my first session because... he gave me a magical, bracelet or wand or something. And it was like, no, you can do anything with this. Yeah. Anything. And I was like, okay. And then a vampire got me into an alley, and it was like, the vampire comes closer. What do you do? And I just froze. I was like, I don't know.
As you would, to be fair.
You see the vampire's teeth coming out. What do you do? And I was like, and then he just, fuck it. And he with his two fingers pricked me on the neck and boom, you're bitten. Make a new character.
Yeah.
And it only took because we, as I said, we played all these games, and it only took, I think it took less than half a year before he went to me and was like, hey, you know a lot of Tolkien lore, too much to be a player when I'm GMing. So why don't you take over GMing when we play MERP, and I'll still GM when we play, Cult, Mutant, Drakar och Demoner. So I became a GM after, and I was like, I can't GM you guys. You've been playing for years and years. And he was like, no, here are the books. Read them. You learn it. Write something cool. I'm sick and tired of you correcting me on the lore all the time. So my GM journey started almost immediately.
Yeah, and then never ended. Tell me, just going back a step, because I came to Sweden Rolls, which is for those who are yet to listen to it, is your podcast where you play all Free League games, or at least Swedish RPGs, is that right?
We play Swedish RPGs that are published in English. So that means it's a lot of Free League games, but we also played some Cult Divinity Lost by Helmgast. We played Adventure, which has recently come out as a translation. It's a game. I think the target group, you can safely say the target group is kids. It's a game for beginners when they're young. It's a really good and cool fantasy RPG. We played Troubleshooters, an excellent game, and again by Helmgast. It's a kind of like a Tintin, like the Franco-Belgian comic book styled RPG.
Oh, that's cool.
Where you can't die, but you have like story points that you like if you get captured by the evil society, then you get story points, and you can use those story points to, it's an excellent game. I really love it. So we played most of the games, if not all of the Swedish games that are published in English.
Yeah.
But then I also got an idea that why couldn't you play like Baldur's Gate, the original Baldur's Gate from,
I just
25 years ago, and do that, but as a TTRPG, since all the players in the podcast are actors.
Yeah, that's a great idea, that.
And I was like, hey, this guy could be Minsk, and this Ingela could be Chihira, and Annalie would make an excellent Imoen.
And they hadn't played the video game, right?
No. Matthias had played it, but 25 years ago. So he didn't remember anything of it, of the story, basically.
Yeah. That's a great idea. I just started on that season. But what got me into the show is I'm pretty new into the RPG scene myself, as my listeners know. But Dragonbane was one of the first. It was the second game that really got me into and to start playing. One of the reasons being that Dragonbane, as Free League does, Free League really takes solo play pretty seriously, and probably more so than any other publisher, which is really fantastic to see in our community, obviously. And early on, Dragonbane came up as an example of a really well done, considerate solo mode made, like official solo mode that actually came in the core box. It wasn't an extra supplement. It wasn't a downloadable PDF. It comes in the box with everything that you actually need to get playing, which for us in our little corner of the hobby was a really big deal a few years ago when it came out. And so I picked that up at Essen one day, and I started trying to find all the Dragonbane content that I could, because I immediately fell in love with that it was different to D&D. I fell in love with Rolling Under. I loved Rolling Under stuff. I fell in love with the art and the story and the kind of the tone that it just set there. And when looking for this Dragonbane content, that's when I came across you guys. And up until that point, I hadn't known that it was originally an older Swedish RPG. Drakar or Demoner.
Demoner, yes.
Demoner, yeah.
Translates to Dragons and Demons.
Yeah, sure. Which I can understand for branding reasons is maybe a little bit too close to another game when they re-released it, right?
Exactly. I mean, putting it close to Dungeons and Dragons was the intention of the original publishers. They wanted, but of course then it was just a translation, so it didn't matter much. Yeah. Like TSR wouldn't come after a small Swedish publishers, back in the day. So they could pull it off. But once you go into translating, it's going to be different. Like it's, sure. I understand they went another direction for sure.
And I think it's a good was a good decision. But I wanted to ask you, what was your awareness coming in that little bit later? You weren't there in the early days of Dragonbane. But what was it like coming in later? What was the awareness in Sweden, playing role-playing games in Sweden? Were people tending more towards that than D&D because of because it was yours?
Yeah. Drakar Demoner outsold Dungeons and Dragons massively in Sweden. I'd say it wasn't until 5th edition that Dungeons and Dragons started outselling the Swedish games in Sweden. I might be wrong. It might be 3rd edition. It might be 25 years back. But I would actually say that, based on people I've talked to, it's because of Stranger Things, Critical Role, all this zeitgeist, this big hype around D&D that has finally made people in Sweden, excited about Dungeons and Dragons, because of course there was a lot of people playing Dungeons and Dragons back in the day. Of course, both there in the end there did come a Swedish translation for Dungeons and Dragons, but neither the original English game or the Swedish translation had any chance of outperforming Drakar och Demoner and Target Games other games for 20 years.
Yeah.
Not a chance, and maybe even 30 years. As I said, I'm unsure as to when Dungeons and Dragons started outselling. I know it's the case now, and I know it's been the case for 10 years since 5th edition came out, since Critical Role became a huge thing, and Stranger Things, and all this put together that's created this Dungeons and Dragons hype.
Yeah.
If you talk to someone in the 80s and 90s about playing role-playing games, the synonym was Drakar och Demoner, not Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Nowadays, when you talk to especially younger people, people who are born in this millennia, they more often are drawn into RPGs from watching live streams, and they're like, oh, I want to play Dungeons and Dragons. And then people in the Swedish community are like, are you sure you want to play Dungeons and Dragons, or would you consider any role-playing game? Because actually there are games that are a bit more beginner-friendly if you want to get into role-playing games generally. And very often they're like, no, I want to do Dungeons and Dragons. That's what I want to do. They have an opinion that other games are kind of some kind of lesser games in one way. And I love Dungeons and Dragons, don't get me wrong. Especially 5th edition, I think it's an excellent game. I love playing it. I just love playing other games as well, and I don't like that people. I
think
find
dismissive, right?
It's a shame that people are not open to playing other games as well.
And as we know, it is a golden age at the moment for the diversity of RPGs that are out there. And I have experienced that myself for the last year. My show's a year old. And for the last year, one of my challenges has been I've been getting every month a new game I didn't know off my shelf and just playing it, learning it and playing it. So, and the breadth of ideas and stories and worlds and potential out there at the moment in just this my shelf, which is one small, snapshot of what is available out there, is really amazing. And I think it's a whole other conversation to have about how streaming is changing people's idea of RPGs, how they're getting into RPGs. Whole other conversation there. But I just wanted to add to the Swedish specific point. I was in Scandinavia for the first time just very recently, and I was really blown away by the cultural integration of RPGs that sort of happens to be there, much more than where I come from, or even here in Germany. It was really fantastic to see the best RPG shops I've seen with the most diverse lineup of games there. I saw in Copenhagen and in Oslo as well. I didn't make it to Stockholm this time. That's the next trip. But it's really great to see it. I really felt that it felt really accepted and not mainstream necessarily, but was that always the case in within the hobby and within the niche, or has that grown as well, do you think, with this recent
since
D&D
Target
stuff?
Games, they set the tone very early, and they were so dominant. They had a outspoken strategy that we don't want any competitors being able to come into the market, because we want to be so, like, we want to control the market so much that it's going to be impossible for a translation of D&D to come in here, or for another publishing company to come in here with other games. So they had a policy that they wanted to publish one new product every month even.
Whoa.
Or at least every other month. But they were like, we need to, like, if we always have new products on the shelves, then people won't need other RPGs. And as I said, they did not only do Drakar och Demoner. It took them like that. The first edition came out in 1982. That one didn't sell very well. It was just a rough translation of Magic World, a BRP RPG from Chaosium that they had the license from. And then in 1984, 2 years later, a second edition came, and that one really, that's the one that exploded. But already in 1984, they released Mutant, and another like 2 or 3 years later, they did the translation for Middle-earth role-playing game, for Star Wars, and then in the early 90s, they released Cult, the first edition, I think 91 or something. So they had a lot of games out there. They also, they translated Chill. It's an old RPG. We called it Shock here. They translated it too, which is a kind of horror investigation RPG. So there was a great diversity, even though it was just from one company. There was still a great diversity of different games. So we were used to that from the start. Not me personally, but RPG Sweden was used to RPGs not just being one game. RPGs are a lot of different games because you want to tell different stories. Like if you want to play a sci-fi game, you don't want rules that are made for a fantasy setting, because you need to, change the rules. And that's why I think,
And it forces you to sort of, or it doesn't force you, but if you change the rules and the mechanics, it encourages you to think differently while you're playing, and then perhaps come up with different stories and different character arcs and that kind of thing.
Exactly. I'm not sure if that was a question, like if diversity has been a thing for a long time in the games.
And just
was that the question?
Yeah, and just in the culture as well,
Yeah, it's been. I mean, in the 80s, as I said, I'm a few years too young, but people who are 5 to 10 years older than me, they speak, they speak about the fact that in the 80s, in every single school class in Sweden, there was an RPG group.
Wow.
Because there were some nerds in every school class, and all of them played Drakar och Demoner, because the original publishers had a great distribution contract with a distributor who distributed games to every single toy shop in Sweden. So in every toy shop in Sweden, basically, they had RPGs.
Yeah.
So the kids were like, "Oh, I want that," and the parents were like, "Okay, I don't understand what this is." Drakar och Demoner.
Just another toy, right?
Yeah, like, is this the demons? Is this satanic? There were some worries about that, but the big satanic panic for RPGs came a bit later. It came in the 90s with the
it still did come though.
Cult. It still did come. Oh yeah, for sure. It was a huge thing because the Swedish game Cult first edition was, I think there were even like instructions on how to summon entities from the other side in the game. Okay. So of course that ticked off a lot of people.
Great imagination fuel there.
Yeah.
Something else that I noticed, and actually one of the reasons I reached out to you while I was traveling on my little trip, I saw in a couple of stores there, I saw your very own adventures. There's your Windheim adventure and your Horn of the Dawn adventure, and it really tickled me because I kind of like, I'd listened to those series of the show, of your show. I then, after I exhausted all your Dragonbane content, I then thought, oh well, I better look into what some of these other games are, and that's actually how I discovered then and got into Forbidden Lands and Coriolis as well, which are the other two that I'm still listening to. But it was really wonderful to see those books on the shelf there. And I mean, I knew that they were adventures that you had done and that you were running, but I didn't really have it in my head that they were real tangible things, you know, until I saw them there. And I thought that was really cool. How did you get from being told by the GM, maybe you should GM so you can stop rules or law lawyering me in these Tolkien games? How did you get from that to actually designing your own adventures fully and fleshed out and then actually publishing things? Was that tied into the show, or did it come before or after?
No, I'd say I was creating fantasy worlds even before I started doing RPGs, because since Tolkien was my gateway into the hobby, of course, like many other Tolkien fans, I actually have the map right next to me here by the wall. My very first fantasy map that I made for my very first fantasy world.
Cool.
I started working on it back in, I would say, like 92. So it's over 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd written worlds, fantasy worlds, where I wanted to create lore, creation myths, and pantheons and stuff like that. I'd done that even before I started RPGing. So once he asked me, "Do you want to GM our MERP sessions?" For me, I think we did like one of the official scenarios. But apart from that, I was like, okay, first of all, I don't like the timing of this RPG. It should be set a few hundred years later, I think, or earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I think later. Yeah. I was like, it shouldn't be in 1461. It should be in 19. So I basically changed the setting, not the world, but like the timeline. I pushed it a few hundred years back, or yeah, I think later. I think I pushed it a bit later because I felt that period was more interesting. There were more interesting stories to tell there. So I did that. I wrote completely my own campaign, which I GM'd for them. So yeah, for me, I've always been a GM that rather writes his own stuff than plays the official games. And that's what we do in Sweden Rolls as well. Even though we play Swedish games, official games published in English, we basically never do the official campaigns. Yeah. And there's two reasons for that. One is that we don't want to spoil the scenario, because if we do that, then only GMs can listen to our show. But the second one is actually just my preference, Yeah. And it's not because I don't think that they're like I can write better stuff than the official writers, of course. But it's because I'm lazy, Studying an official campaign takes a lot of time. I don't have that time.
Yeah.
And I don't really have that attention span either.
Yeah, I mean, you say that, but then you write entire adventures and lay them out, and
Yeah, but then like the adventures I write on an A4 paper. Tops, sometimes even a Post-it.
Yeah.
I'm so much of a low prep GM that I improvise a lot, and I also like to give the players a lot of agency. I like to give them the keys to the car and just say, these are the roads you can take. Which one do you want to take, and how do you want to get there?
Yeah. And that's a great approach that I think is being talked about more and more these days, right? I mean, I feel like from my awareness of back in the day more, it was almost sort of expected that you would write pages and pages of stuff if you were going to GM and write an adventure, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not that I don't have a lot of lore, or I don't have a lot. I just have it in here.
Yeah.
Because it's like Windheim is a setting I worked on. I had this fantasy world that I talked about earlier, and we did some RPGing in that in the 90s, like the second half of the 90s, I'd say. But I created that world with the intention of writing literature in it, not for RPG purposes, because I hadn't played RPGs when I started creating it. So I felt like I was restrained with how far I could push the story in this world, because I didn't want to push the story so far that it would change the history. So I wanted to create a world where the players could change history, where what happens 10 years down the line in the world is open. In the one I created first, that can't be, because I have, the timeline is like, okay, first this happens and then this happens, and it's very limiting for the players. So I started creating Windheim about 20 years ago, because I felt I needed a world where the players could have more agency, where they could, change history much more than they could in my original world.
Yeah. I mean, that experience, what you're describing there, I think probably resonates with a lot of solo players as well, because that's really a lot of the approach, or at least one approach too. You want to have bits of ideas, but leave enough gaps that when you actually start playing and interpreting things and asking questions, that those things can flesh out around you. And that is a real part of the fun. I wanted to ask as well, speaking of our little corner of the niche here, what awareness do you have of solo RPG? And it's okay if you don't have much of awareness of it, but
embarrassingly little.
Yeah.
I flipped through the Dragonbane little booklet that comes in the box ahead of this podcast, and it looked nothing like what I expected it to.
Interesting.
And I really just flipped through it. I didn't read it from front cover to back cover.
Yeah.
If once I do that, I'll probably understand a bit more. But yeah, it's a I don't understand how it works.
Yeah.
I don't understand how you can have, because for me a scenario that's written is written in a way that, okay, like this is how, this is what's behind the next door.
Mm-hmm.
And once you play it solo, you read it and then you know what's behind the next door. So I don't understand how that works.
Well, I mean, that's a whole other episode as well.
Yeah,
is schooling Andreas on what solo RPG is.
For sure.
And that would be a great thing to do one day as a topical discussion, maybe. I mean, the answer is usually you don't know what's behind the door, but you get given a couple of prompts, and then you let your imagination interpret what is then behind the door, And I read a really interesting article we've been talking about over on the Patreon the other day by James Spahn. I just got his white box book, Cyclopedia, just came to our house recently.
Nice.
And he was talking the same thing. He said, I had no idea what solo RPG was. I thought it was a bit weird and a bit lame. And for whatever reason, he started being intrigued and looking into it, and said he realizes now that it's that natural human instinct to turn clouds into shapes. It's by being given pieces, like not enough information, and then our desire to then create something meaningful out of it. And I thought that was a really nice and simple perspective from someone outside of the solo community to see.
I would like to amplify to just say for the record that I do not think it's lame or useless. It's just that I haven't tried it and I haven't understood it. I haven't taken the time to sink my teeth into it. I think everything that encourages people to create is amazing. And everything that encourages people to play role-playing games is amazing. Yeah. I mean, I could imagine that it is... I had another interview yesterday about Windheim and Sweden Rolls, where I said that we were talking about VTTs, like playing role-playing games online. And I was like, I compared it with, an IRL game being a 3-course dinner, homemade. And playing online is, kind of chucking a frozen meal into the microwave. And like, yeah, sure. If you're eating 3-course meals homemade every day, then of course you're going to think that the microwave heated thing is, a very bad substitute.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the possibility to eat 3-course meals, if the frozen microwave stuff is all you have, then that's excellent. It's amazing that it exists, because it makes it possible for people to eat who wouldn't been able to eat otherwise, Yeah. And the same thing is for VTTs. Like, there are people who live in corners of the world where they can't get an RPG group together. So it's great that virtual tabletops are around so people can play RPGs. And I feel the same way about our solo RPGs. That it's a great thing. There might be people who prefer it to playing IRL with other people, but I imagine that people mostly used it as a substitute when you can't really get a group together, or you can't get enough groups together.
Yeah.
But that might be prejudice for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a totally understandable and common perspective to have. I disagree, actually.
Okay.
I am someone who prefers playing solo. I have limited experience running a group. I've just playing Dragonbane, actually, which I really enjoy. And we've just started a new game as well recently. I do really enjoy that. And I agree with your assessment of BTT being a thinner layer, like a thinner experience than playing at a table. And I agree with that as well. However, I'd put to you that solo RPG, it can absolutely be a substitute or a way for, I mean, I know GMs who are people who do it as a way to learn games or to build their worlds to then play with groups,
Ah, yes, yeah.
But I would argue that it's rather quite a different experience, and it's not so much a substitute as it is taking elements from the enjoyment of GM world building and elements from the enjoyment of playing, world crafting, writing. I mean, people use it to write novels even, it's this whole other weird subset that floats somewhere in between all these other elements. It's a fascinating place.
Amazing.
You may learn more about it in the not too distant future.
I hope so. Yeah.
Coming back to Sweden roles a little bit. You sit down with, in fact, just give us the premise for the show for those of my listeners who are yet to hear your show.
So we're all Swedes except Dominic, who's British, and we had a cast member called Angela Wand for the first 2 seasons, who's American but lives in Sweden. And Dominic lives in Sweden as well. He moved back to the UK for a few years, so he hasn't been a part of the show for a while. But he's just recently come back to Sweden again.
Oh, nice.
But apart from those 2, like all the rest of the cast they're all Swedes, and it's me game mastering professional actors basically. So all the cast members are professional actors, and me and Jacob, we're the ones who started the show. He's a very old friend of mine. He was my drama teacher actually back in Gymnasiet when I started doing RPGs. So I asked him, I had a Swedish language podcast called Tärningen är kastad, the die is cast, alia jacta est, for a year or 2, maybe, something like that. And then I felt like I really want to do something in English so we can reach, a worldwide audience. So I went to Jacob and I said, listen, you're an actor, you should probably know a lot of actors. And I had Anneli Heed, one of Sweden's most finest voice actresses, as a neighbor in the apartment building where I lived. So I was like, I think I could get a pretty good voice actress to come along. Could you ask, 1 or 2 actors as well? And we could get a podcast going where we play RPGs, Swedish RPGs, because also we wanted to, since Sweden has such a fine reputation in the RPG world, mainly thanks to Free League, but also, Helmgast and Riot Minds with their Trudvang setting and stories. So thanks to the great reputation that Sweden has in the like wider RPG community, we said like, well, why don't we try to ride that wave and just call the show something with Sweden, like Sweden Rolls or whatever, and do it our thing to play Swedish games, but that are released in English. So yeah, we wanted it to be actors to have to give the show that drama that it needs to be really entertaining. I think
in audio.
Yeah, exactly. I often say that there's a scale where on the one hand of the scale you have shows that are very much you have the feeling of being someone who sits at the table with the players. You hear the chips and crisps and they don't cut out any of the rules discussions, which is great if you wanna feel like you're sitting around the table with some friends, or if you want to learn the rules of a game. And then on the other side of the spectrum, on the other side of the scale, you have something that's basically radio theater, where they sometimes even edit out the dice rolls and just tell the story. And then, of course, most shows are somewhere in the middle between these, but some are leaning more towards, like, you have Red Moon Role Playing, who are leaning quite heavily towards the like audio drama, radio theater, improvisation. And then you have like the Effect Podcast, who's really like, they do actual play for the purpose of learning and teaching rules. So
what's the name of that one?
The Effect Podcast.
The Effect, okay.
It's two British guys, Dave and Matthew. They're excellent. It was called the Coriolis Effect at first. It was a like solely a Coriolis podcast from the start.
Cool.
But now they're doing a lot of other Free League games and other games as well. So they changed the name to Effect Podcast. I highly recommend it. Especially when they do discussions about RPGs, because they really do their research really well. And I also, for the same reason for other reasons, I recommend Red Moon Role Playing, because they have a really good high level of drama when they play, and it's really immersive in a way that, you know, discussions podcasts really aren't. And we wanted to find that perfect balance somewhere in the middle, maybe leading slightly more towards audio drama. Yeah. But I think we're pretty square in the middle, actually.
Yeah, I think so.
We had aimed to lean a bit more towards audio drama, but then again, you're playing a game, and that needs to, like, it takes a lot of more editing to make it not sound like you're playing a game. So yeah, we're pretty square in the middle, I'd say. The actors always do character voices. We try to do, we focus a lot of the podcast of being, you know, PC to PC interaction or PC to NPC interactions. We don't do a lot of rules discussions. We don't do a lot of, what do you call it, like gamification of the game. We try and focus on the story and the narrative.
Yeah, but I think that, to me, that's the balance I want to hear as well, and that's the same sort of balance that I strike when I do my actual plays, because I want to hear the mechanics. I want to hear people, the characters reacting to the situation, reacting to the dice roll, and see how that sparks their brains to decide what to do next. Like, to me, that's the interesting thing. We can listen to audio dramas that are scripted and written and edited and like, you know, written to be audio dramas. You know, there's so much breadth and wealth of content out there in all sorts of ways. What I wanted to ask, though, was what was the experience like for you then, GMing actors who were actors first rather than RPG players necessarily? I mean, I know Matthias had played a little bit.
Yeah, he'd played some, yeah, sure.
But typically, I mean, most of the cast on there had maybe a passing familiarity with RPGs.
Yeah, I think both Jacob and Dominic had, you know, like tried a couple of times, but, you know, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. So yeah, it's they were all beginners, and I would say that it's been fun. It's been fun. It's kind of like
did it challenge the way that you DM'd at all?
Yeah, it did. Sometimes I needed to be a bit more clear. It helped a lot when Matthias joined, because he catches some of the, you know, classical RPG hints that a GM drops for the players. Once he joined, the group started attacking some of the, you know, conundrums a bit differently. Which made it a bit easier for me, but it's also, because I used to have a GM style that was pretty like, well, if you do stupid shit, I'm gonna punish you. Yeah, you know. But now we are producing content that's supposed to be entertaining, and few things are as entertaining than players who fuck stuff up. So I just realized I can't punish them for that the way I used to, because we also want it to be entertaining, you know. So it did change my GM style in that regard, for sure, like definitely. And that's something I brought with me to other games, like when I when I play home games or when I play libraries for kids and conventions, stuff like that, because I'd come to realize that having fun is the most important part. Realism, how would a king react to a player character being blatantly rude? Yeah, probably off with their head, but is that going to be fun? No, it's more fun to have this quirky character really behaving inappropriately. And there are other ways to punish, in quote unquote, punish that kind of behavior than just off with their head.
Yeah. You've now played, you've been running for what, how long? 5 years? Something like that?
I think we're coming up to 8 years now.
8 years?
I think
wow.
so, yeah.
That's excellent.
Mm.
Yeah, I've only listened to, I did all the Dragonbane stuff, then first couple of seasons of Forbidden Lands, then started with Coriolis, and now I'm sort of jumping back between Coriolis and Forbidden Lands. But of all these systems that you've got to play for the show now, do you have any favorites, A, in terms of setting and mechanics, and B, in terms of just how they are to GM?
Ooh, that's like asking which one of your kids do you love the most?
Or at least
you can't really answer that, but it's
sure.
But I can give you some aspects of different. Of course, doing Horn of the Dawn and Windheim, playing Dragonbane with the casts was different than everything else, because even though I'd written all the stories for all the other games, this was actually written for the purpose of publishing. So I'd put much more effort into preparing that story, basically. And it's also a world that I've created. Like all of the other ones, I've written the story, but it's always in a setting that I haven't written.
Yeah.
So it felt good in a way. It felt better in a way than all of the other ones had, because it just felt like this is all me.
Yeah.
Like both the world and the story. Of course, it's their story as well, because they're telling their character's story. But you know what I mean? Like I felt like it was more my thing, more my story than anything else. So I liked that about Dragonbane, and also I think the game Dragonbane is one of the best ones ever, because it's such a great balance of, it's not too simple, but it's still simple enough that my players who are not RPG players but actors actually learned the rules really, really fast.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great balance between it's not crunchy at all, but it still has everything you need to make the rules like diverse,
Yeah, and still like deadly enough to feel like there are stakes there, which is important, and there's enough tactility or potential for tactics in combat, even to you can play better or worse. It's not just who rolls higher is going to die. You
said it better than I did. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I meant. And also I think this it's very easy for a character to go down, but it takes a lot for a character to actually die. That distinction of going down to 0 hit points, starting to make death rolls, since they are basing the death rolls on Constitution instead of 55-45%. Most people do not put 11 or under in Constitution because it controls your hit points. So in the very most, especially the ones who are close to the monsters, the ones who are melee fighters, they will have 14 in Constitution, which will make they have a 75% chance of making their death rolls. So even though it's very easy to go down to 0 hit points and become unconscious or out of combat, it's actually quite unusual for characters to die. Of course it happens, but it doesn't happen as much as you would think.
And you feel like you've had a good chance as well. It's not like roll a die up, you're dead.
No, exactly.
The vampire got you.
Exactly. It will punish you if you make stupid decisions, but you do have a chance to realize that you've made a stupid decision and get the hell out of there. it still gives you a nerve. If you as a player know that I'm one hit away from going down to 0 hit points, that gives every single combat the nerve it needs to feel exciting.
Yeah,
but it's also not fun if it's super easy for your character to die.
Yeah,
and you need to make a new character.
Yeah, so because then you don't want to get attached to anyone because you're just going to kill them.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Why do I keep on making characters they all die? So it's I think it's a great balance they have there.
I would add to that, and I hadn't thought about that death roll save mechanical element of it, where it is easy to go down, but the chance that you can get back up again or be helped in time is really good, and that's really important for the storytelling as well, right? Because it's a much more exciting story to have your mate or you go down and on death's door and your friends come and pick you up and get you out of there. Like that makes for better stories. And I found, and the reason I'm talking so passionately about it now as well, is it's the first game that I GM'd as well. And I GM'd it with 2 people, so a small group, and neither of them had ever played RPGs before at all. And that was a fun experience for me. It was a low pressure experience for me as well. But I noticed some things which I think improved my solo play and improved my GMing maybe, about what things they found cool. Mm-hmm. I didn't notice the going down as much. And again, there's only 2 of them, so it's a bit more dangerous for them.
Of course, yeah.
But what I found that they really did naturally, which improved the storytelling, was pushing those rolls and getting conditions.
Yeah.
And then having to describe, why are you getting angry now? Like, what are you doing now in your action that allows you to push this roll and get angry, And those tiny, seemingly really simple mechanics in there, which is essentially just a way to re-roll a dice and have a better chance. But framing it in a way of becoming exhausted or angry or something, I think it really helps with that. We could talk about Dragonbane all day. That's, again, another episode. What else from some of the other systems stands out to you, or do you really enjoy? What elements?
I mean, of course, Forbidden Lands has a special place in my heart as well, because it's the game that started the whole show. So I really love the characters in that. I think the cast members have created characters that really have gotten a good character arc. For sure. And also, like, basically all the ones who've been playing full seasons of, like, Coriolis and Forbidden Lands and Dragonbane and also Baldur's Gate. For me, when I hear Ingela yell, "For the Fallen!" in the voice of Jaheira, I just get goosebumps, because I spent so many hours on Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 back in the days. And and when Minsk and Boo are talking, I just get goosebumps all over. So that's a lot of fun. And with Coriolis, I just love the setting so much. I just love the setting so much. It's such a delight to be doing that, and I think the characters in that campaign are really interesting as well. So I think the strength of Sweden Rolls is the players and the actors' ability to rip off each other, like to jam with each other, to have character versus character scenes.
Yeah,
that's where Sweden Rolls really excels, because of their background, of course, as improvisational actors and voice actors, and the different kinds. Like, when we started, it was really fun also because every single actor had their own forte. Like Annalie as a voice actor, Dominic is he's an actor, but most of all he's a storyteller. So he has a storytelling background.
Yeah, and you see that come out in his characters.
Of course. And Jacob does a lot of improvisation and a lot of theater acting, and Angela, who was an amazing, like, MC as well, and a great, just a great performer. So it's also cool that they all, and when Matthias came in, he had the background of also being an RPG player. So they all brought different things to the table, basically. So it was so yeah.
And I think I absolutely agree with you. That is the strengths. One of the strengths of Sweden Rolls. When I think back to the past seasons that I've listened to over the last couple of years, it's the characters that I remember.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And the small details, or the way that they approach certain situations, or or did something funny or interesting, or do you have any favorite characters? I know you ask your players this on your couch sessions.
Yeah.
Or are you not allowed to say that? Or you have to say one from each actor,
Yeah, let's do that. That's going to be most fair. Well, of course, with Dominic, it would have to be Nissel. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
I just love Nissel's character arc, from being a goblin rogue who just says fuck off to everyone. I'm not going to spoil his character arc, but the way he kind of becomes the leader of the company, I just love that. And I love his voice for Nissel. I love the way Nissel reacts to everything. I just love that.
Thoughtful goblin, but still rough,
For sure. And I'm going to have to go to Forbidden Lands when it comes to Annalie, because Alira is such an amazing character. She's kind of the coriander of Sweden Rolls. People either love her or hate her. There are very few that are like, oh, I guess Alira's okay.
Yeah. I changed, actually.
She's either someone's favorite or the one that people really hate and wish that would just, get out of the podcast. And not Annalie, the Alira though, but yeah. So sure. I'm gonna have to go with Alira there, because she brings she brings so much chaos to the table.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I think for Matthias, it's tough. I love Raph, but I also love Farzan from Coriolis. I mean, he does do an amazing Minsk, but I will have to choose between Farzan and Raph.
Yeah, those are my two as well.
But God damn it, I think I'm going to have to go with Raph. I'm going to have to go with Forbidden Lands again. Because Raph, when he is misunderstanding human behavior, that's one of the peak comedy aspects of the podcast. I think for Ingela, I do love her Serenella, the way she's kind of schizophrenic almost. She goes from pious little calm halfling who's introvert and doesn't really want to take up any space, and then she goes into full murder hobbit mode. It's I love that, but I do think with Ingela I would have I would like to say a character from a one-shot, actually. She played a moose when we played Mutant Gene Lab Delta. There's a supplement for Mutant Tier 0 called Gene Lab Alpha, but since we had to do a very, very, basically a 5-hour one-shot out of it. I call it Gene Lab Delta. She plays a moose. It's her very first character in the podcast. It's a moose. It's a Welsh moose called Shakespeare. She just, she made such an entrance into the podcast that it was impossible not to invite her in as a full-time cast member. But if I'm gonna have to go with a character from one of the longer campaigns, I think I might have to agree with Ingela that Jaheira, her Jaheira for Baldur's Gate is amazing.
I look forward to it.
Her captain in Coriolis is also amazing. She really does do very different characters from game to game. But I think maybe Jaheira would have to be my answer. For Jacob, I think I might have to go with Baldur's Gate again. I really think he gets the Khalid, part of my language, but the pussy whipped Khalid. That really comes through really, really, really well. The way he just defers to Jaheira all the time, but how their love is still so incredibly strong. I think he does a really kick-ass Khalid. I mean, Odvir is amazing as well, and Effie from Coriolis is also great. But I do think I will have to go with Khalid there, actually.
Yeah. And don't forget, he does a fantastic horrible little man in one of your Morkborg one shots that you did.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many one shots. It's very difficult to remember all of them. I think that's a Patreon only though. We did play Things from the Flood, which is basically the sequel to Tales from the Loop, where he and that was the first time Amanda was a guest on the show, I think, and also one of the first times that Emily Drotz was a guest on the show. He had a really cool character for that one as well. But yeah, there's so many one-shot characters, and they do so many great characters. It's very hard to choose.
But what a high recommendation that is for Sweden Rolls. If there's so many fantastic characters that are so diverse and different over these different systems.
Yeah,
really super high recommendation. Going back to Dragonbane for a second, you started these two worlds, or is it the same world? Horn of the Dawn and Windheim?
Horn of the Dawn is just the campaign that takes place in Windheim. So we have the two books we have out right now are from Dragonbane are the Windheim Companion, which is basically a setting book. It's not an adventure. It's just a setting book where the kin and the history, the cosmology, the theology is explained. And it's also packed with, I think it's like 20 adventure seeds, which are basically that's like 200-word, very short adventure seeds written by amazing guest writers like Rob J. Schwalb and Heidi Gygax and Eric Garland and a bunch of Swedish RPG royalty, basically. I'm not going to start naming names because then I'm going to leave someone out and I'm going to insult someone. But just a huge amount of RPG royalty from Sweden. And then Traces of Darkness is it's part one of a campaign trilogy. So Horn of the Dawn is the name of the campaign. So part one is called Traces of Darkness. And that one is, it's part one in a huge epic campaign set on Windheim.
Yeah. And might I just add for us solo players, those adventure seeds are fantastic. Because it just gives us something to start with and hang on to.
Yeah.
And then enough of a setting, having a solid world behind it, and then we can just go out and play in the sandbox. That's really good for us.
Yeah, exactly. Because the adventure seeds are also there are no rules or stats in them.
Yeah.
So it's just a story seed. It doesn't have stats for monsters. It's just like those adventure seeds you could use for basically any fantasy setting or game or rule set.
Yeah. And you currently have a project that is live at the moment.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes. As we speak, we have 499 backers. This morning, before we started recording, we had 499. And I was going to say to you that maybe we'll, reach that 500 threshold as we record. But then just like 10 minutes before we started recording, someone canceled their pledge.
Oh, no.
So we went down to 498. So this backer who has actually backed us during the course of the interview only brought it up back to 499. We'll see before we end the recording if we'll go up to 500.
Have to check again.
Yeah,
I was going to back it if it's not there by the end of the
exactly.
end of the interview.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
We'll cheat. We'll cheat the system. No, but
so what is Windheim Falling?
Windheim Falling is part 2 of Horn of the Dawn. So it's basically the sequel to Traces of Darkness, and the Kickstarter is going very well. It's actually outperforming the first one, which is amazing for a sequel Kickstarter to outperform the part 1. That's I don't think that's very common. But it's also a second book. It's also a second book called Windheim Adventures, which is a collection of 6 one-shots, basically. And it's perfect for those who maybe are like, okay, but let's see this Nordic Skalds, which is our publishing company, what they are doing, if we like it. So it's a perfect book to start with if you're just a little bit curious about the Windheim setting, if you're just a little bit curious about what kind, like my writing style, how do we Nordic Skalds generally write our scenarios? Because I would say, and also like if you're just a Dragonbane fan, 5 of these 6 scenarios can be used in any setting. One is tied very deeply into some, politics and history of Windheim that it would take some like it's possible to convert it. You could just have these 2 different cultures be in another setting and you can play it. But yeah, 5 or 6 out of 6 are very setting free. You can have that setting anywhere. So it's a Kickstarter for 2 books. One is part 2 of Horn of the Dawn, a continuation of Traces of Darkness, and the other one is a 6 adventure collection, basically. And Traces of Darkness was pretty railroaded. We've even gotten some critique about that it's, but in my opinion, railroading and sandbox is just a matter of opinion. It's not a question of quality. So
just different experiences.
Yeah, exactly. And some people prefer the one, some people prefer the other. And it's not that part 1 has no player agency. It has a lot of player agency on how the story is, continued. It's just that we've written the stories so it's very clear for the GM that they're supposed to go from here to here to here to here. But we've also included motivations to do that. So it's not like the players are going to be, strong-armed into moving from one part of the story to the next one. Yeah. But we did promise at the end of part 1 that part 2 was going to be a bit more sandboxy. So I've written maybe a quarter or a third of part 2 as we speak now in mid-September, early to mid-September. And yeah, I'd say that it's more sandboxy. It hasn't gone from full railroad to full sandbox, but it's definitely more sandboxy than part 1.
Was it always planned to have a part 2 and a
Oh yeah.
Part 3,
The story does not end with Traces of Darkness. It's I would say that Traces of Darkness is the prologue to the main to the like the major story of the history of Windheim. I would say, and part 2 and 3 is when it really kicks off. It's when it really like the stakes are getting higher, the political intrigue gets deeper. The monsters become more dangerous. The choices that the characters make have immense consequences, implications. What the word? So there are major implications to the choices that the player characters make. They have enormous, like they have the power in their hand to control the future fate of Windheim.
Fantastic. How much actually, because I haven't read, I didn't buy the first part while I was away because we were talking and I thought, I will pick it up in Oslo. By the time I actually got to Oslo, all my money was gone on the very expensive craft beers. That is.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Norway was
God damn it. Norway is expensive. It's all their oil money. It just drives
It
up.
was so much fun. I loved it. But man, did I have no money left by the end of it. But that's all right because presumably I can pick it up in this Kickstarter as well.
Of course. Part. We have a lot of different tiers. We want to simplify it for people so people won't have to, pick a bunch of add-ons back and forth, and so we basically have 2 digital tiers. One is like, if you're an old digital friend, you have the PDFs of the previous stuff, you get the PDFs from the new stuff. We have one that's, you want PDFs but you don't have any. Okay, here are all the PDFs. And then we have, for the physical tiers, we have like, okay, do you just want one or the other of the books, the new books? So if you are not sure you want to play in Windheim, but you have heard of all the awards that we won for our books, so you want to try it, so just get this adventure collection.
Yep.
Or maybe you feel like, well, I was a backer of the Kickstarter for the previous PDFs, so I have 4 out of the 6 adventures as PDFs. I don't want to buy a book. You just want to continue playing Horn of the Dawn. You can do that. And then, do you just want the new books, both new books? Then you have a tier for that. If you want both new books and all of the physical stretch goals, we have an all-in Windheim veteran tier, which is just the new books and just the new die set, the new maps. There's a great discount for that. You're going to save like tens of euros on doing just getting all the new stuff. And then for people who do not own the old books, we have one tier which is basically just all 4 books. No maps, no dice, because all the maps are in the books and all the dice are you can use your own dice if you want to.
Yeah.
But then we also have an all-in tier where you get all the old maps. You get the 14 maps we made for the previous Kickstarter. You get the previous custom dice set. You get the custom die set that we're producing for this one, and you just get showered with stuff, basically.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's really great that that there are multiple ways that you can approach this. And especially for our listeners, we have people who only play solo. We also have plenty of people who GM and do both. And so there's a couple of different avenues there. You can just get into the Windheim world, which is a really great way to solo, use some of those adventure seeds, have the background and the history of the world and some of the places, and just play in that as a sandbox. You can go through, do some of the one-shot adventures, or go through and play the full published adventure. Playing a published adventure solo is a whole other story.
We did get a lot of questions during our previous Kickstarter if we would do solo rules or as like a solo module for the first part. We felt then that we knew nothing about solo role playing, and it felt like, since that was our very first Kickstarter, our very first products as a publishing company, we just felt that was a bit too much for us. We are discussing now whether we should have a stretch goal fairly soon for a solo module, but before we can promise anything on that, we will have to look into because obviously we can't do it. That would delay the project, so we'd need to talk to someone who could do it for us, and we do hope that it could be possible to actually within before the Kickstarter ends to have a stretch goal for a solo module to be included in this Kickstarter.
Well, if we go and just look at the Windheim Falling page now, I see now we have indeed crossed the 500 backers. I don't know who that 500th backer was, but whoever they were, you are clearly a legend.
Yeah, clearly a legend. Thank you. Yeah.
So keep an eye on those stretch goals. Follow the campaign. Do back it. Even if the solo stretch goal doesn't go through, I still think there's so much good solo stuff to be had here. Especially, I would say, not having actually read through the books yet, other than flicking through on the game shelf. But especially that the Windheim setting.
Yeah, the Windheim companion would work really well, because it's really a big sandbox. Every single location has a short description, and the story itself will give you stuff. And then there's these 20 adventure seeds all over the place, which you can craft into your own adventures. And we have a rather long bestiary at the back of the book as well. So there's 15 or 20 monsters or something to fight.
That is fantastic. And we all love our maps and our dice as well. Andreas Lundström, thank you so much for coming on the show. I do feel that there is more that we can talk about. I do feel we may need to have a schooling show on Solo Roleplay one of these days soon, and some topical discussion. Dragonbane is one of the favorites on my channel and in our little community over on Solo Roleplayers. And yeah, where else can people find you? Oh no, I had one more question I wanted to ask.
Sure, shoot.
Now that I'm in a position of privilege to be talking to the host of my favorite RPG show, have you considered doing any the One Ring content?
We have done it. We've done a one-shot of the One Ring. I think because we did a live show during some kind of event in central Stockholm, and we did it on behalf of Free League. I think Free League had like their own stage there. So we went there and we did a one-shot of the One Ring from the starter set, the Hobbit, the Shire starter set. This was a couple of years ago. I think I managed to botched it. I think what happened was I lost the recording of it. So we've actually done it, but I think we lost the recording. Of course, being a huge Tolkien fan, I'd love to do more the One Ring. I even started a live stream called Riddles in the Dark, where we played. We were the first ever to play the second edition of the One Ring.
Cool.
And my first Swedish language podcast, Tärningen Kastad, the Dice Cast, our first campaign was playing, I think, like 30 episodes of the One Ring. It's been definitely one of my absolute favorite games ever.
Yeah, we've had a lot of talk about it at the moment because it is, as all Free League stuff is, and is getting even more so. It puts a lot of love into solo, the solo aspect of the One Ring as well. And with Moria, there's a whole other system that you can play solo with now. And we do on our Patreon, we do a monthly book club, games club, where we get a game to the table and play it and then meet up and discuss it. And the One Ring is heavily talked about to be next month's game. I just need to learn it and get it to the table. I hope to maybe see some One Ring content in the future, but in the meantime, I will happily continue listening to as much, for me at least, Dragonbane, Forbidden Lands, and Coriolis content as you can put out. I highly, highly recommend, don't do what I did with Sweden Rolls, Solo Roleplayers. I listened to one of the later seasons of Forbidden Lands first because I wasn't so sure about this Forbidden Lands thing. I was just annoyed I'd done all the Dragonbane content. And then I had to go back and sort of went back and filled in. So just do yourself a favor, go back to the first episode of Forbidden Lands in Sweden Rolls, start listening to that, and I can't recommend it
because for this
highly
podcast, the players' character arcs, like the players learning the game, is part of the story. So if you jump into the middle, you kind of lose their progression as role players. Not only the player character story, but also the cast members' story as emerging RPG players.
Yeah, exactly. And that is one of the wonderful things about podcasts. Time is meaningless. It doesn't matter if it was 8 years ago. You can go back and listen to it and experience it fresh as if it just came out. Yeah. Where else can people find you on the internet?
So you can find Nordic Skalds, my publishing company, or our publishing company, I should say, on Facebook. I think we're only on Facebook at the moment. We don't really have a web page either. But you can find our Windheim books in stores, hopefully. If you can't, please ask about them, because the greater the demand, the greater the possibility of your friendly local game store actually having it. Windheim Falling is on Kickstarter right now, as you said, and we will have late pledges ongoing for a while as well for that. Yeah. And
an excellent way to get into the original Windheim stuff as well, if you want to get it all in one go.
Yeah, exactly. And we mentioned Sweden Rolls a lot. My RPG music is on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, wherever you listen to your music. I've done the official soundtrack for Dragonbane, for the supplements of Forbidden Lands, not the original Forbidden Lands soundtrack, but the supplements, Bitter Reach and Blood March. Blood March is coming out in just a few weeks actually on Spotify and
awesome. We didn't even get to talk about music. That's a third episode.
Let's do a third episode.
Together. I'm a musician as well. I'd really keen to talk to you about that.
Yeah. No, but so I've done some Vaesen soundtracks. I've done a soundtrack for Twilight 2000 and for the Swedish setting for Call of Cthulhu. So that music is out there. I have a like a medieval / Viking band. We just released our first album. It's called Suttung, SUTTUNG. So Suttung you can listen to on wherever you listen to music. And me myself, I'm Andreas Lundström. My handle is at RPG Podcaster on Reddit, I think, and on Instagram. On Blue Sky, I think I am RPG Podcaster on Blue Sky as well. On Facebook, you can't really do handles, I think. So I'm just Andreas Lundström there. Yeah. Discord. I'm in a lot in the Dragonbane Discord. Somewhat in the Year Zero Discord, but not that much at all.
Yeah, and of course the Patreon for Sweden Rolls.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Let's not forget that one.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today and talking about your story, about your Kickstarter project, and being open and willing to learn a little bit about solo RPGs. I really hope we hear more from you in the future on this show, and if not, anyone can go and find you over on Sweden Rolls. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.